Hey, everybody. Good evening. Welcome. If you've arrived here, you have arrived at how to be an awesome parent and how to have an awesome relationship instead of one of them, usually the relationship falling through the cracks. So we do not want that, right? And I know all of you don't want that because you're here. So I'm Alicia.
I'm Erwan. Hi.
And first, I'd like to give a big thank you. Kirsten, I don't even know if you're here. I can't see you yet. But Kirsten of the Burlingame Parents Club, y'all are hosting this event tonight. So thank you for having us. So there's a bunch of you from that club here. There's a bunch of you from Main Street Mamas in San Francisco. There's a bunch of you from the Castro Valley Mothers Club, maybe Pacifica Mothers Club, or San Mateo Parents Club. So lots of parents in the Bay Area here, and we're happy to have you. Let's see.
I'll tell you just a little thing about us.
Okay.
Which is, sorry to interrupt.
Sorry.
Which is we are parents, and I'm going to prove that here. We're going to show you our child. The reason this is just a funny, silly video, but the reason we're doing that is because I'm amazed how in the world of relationship coaching, there's a lot of coaches who are not in a relationship, right? So we're doing a parenting event, and we actually are parents.
We got something to say about it.
What are you doing? What are you doing? Hey. Now, like all parents, we like to share little videos. So we're going to do a lot of that tonight, sharing little videos and pictures. My apologies for interrupting you. I just had to get yes. Aiden in there.
We're credible. We've got Aiden.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. A couple things I want to say to all of you tonight is that at any time, feel free to pop in questions or comments into the chat. We're going to answer questions towards the end of this talk tonight. You can do that anonymously. You can just put your question in. We'll answer it anonymously. This is a safe space. It's a confidential space. So, parenting is a big deal. Relationship is a big deal. And we know that. It's a tender and sensitive area.
So if you want to do it confidentially, just send it directly to us, and your name won't show up. If you don't mind, you can just send it to everybody. Yes.
So I'll tell you a little bit about us. Some of you know us. We're working with some of you, and others of you are old friends.
Yeah.
We got an old friend here. Hey, Rich. And many of you are new, haven't met us yet. So I'm Alicia Davon. This is Erwan Davon. And for the last 25 years, we've supported over 12,000 singles and couples in unleashing their relationship potential. So people come to us to learn how to get into a thriving relationship who are single. Some people come to us that are already in a relationship and want to know how to bring more chemistry and passion into the relationship. People have psychological challenges related to relationships, sexual challenges, all that kind of stuff. We're human. We all deal with it, and we're here to support you with that. And we have a method, the Davon Method, that we use to support you in all of the goals that you have in your romantic life. So here it is on the screen. I'll say a little bit about it. First step is consciousness, which simply means bringing awareness to those hidden relationship patterns that we all have as human beings that usually are driving our relationship life unbeknownst to us. And we wonder why we keep ending up in the same fights or the same situation. It's those unconscious patterns. So bringing light to those. The next step in the method is making contact with your deepest self. This is the you, the real you, beyond patterns, beyond your conditioning. There's many words for it, and that's really who we are. Once you have that foundation of awareness and contact with yourself, the third part of our method is chemistry. Unleashing the chemistry between the masculine and the feminine, which
She just zapped
I just did.
I felt the chemistry.
And it really is at your fingertips, literally. People
Literally,
can
like stroking my leg. Like,
What's going on?
this is not.
This isn't okay. Behave. No. One thing I'll say is that we tend to think that chemistry is either there or it's not, or it was there and then it's gone. Well, you have more control over it than you may think. Fourth part of our method is choreography, which is dancing through the stages of relationship, learning to thrive in all of the stages and learn skills. So you're like an expert at relationship. Last but not least, cultivation of your sexual potential. So, you can't leave sex out, right? And there's really ways that you can grow and develop in that area beyond what we learned in like 7th grade, right? What else do I want to say here? So we're focusing on romance tonight. Erwan and I, in our organization, we do work in groups with people. We do individual coaching. We have weekend intensives, all sorts of ways that people work with us. And at the end of our class tonight, we'll offer something to those of you who are interested in learning more about working with us. Let's say a little bit about our backgrounds. Why don't you start?
Our backgrounds are polar opposite. I was born in Paris. I grew up in Manhattan in New York City. You grew up in LA. Suburb of LA. Alicia's past, you'll talk about it, but it was sane. Mine was insane. My parents came to this country. They were already breaking up. They got divorced shortly after we got here. The breakup was hostile, to put it lightly. Childhood was very difficult. My mother went back to France when I was 7. She died when I was 15. I barely saw her between that time. I ended up with obsessive compulsive disorder. I was in psychoanalysis, actually, multiple times a week at 15 years old. It was extreme. It was like that. The silver lining in all of that was that it forced me to deal with myself. I was in psychoanalysis. When I went to college and I studied psychology. Then I went from New York City to California, and I took every workshop possible. I went and lived in a Zen monastery. I went and lived in a yoga ashram. I became director of the yoga ashram. I taught workshops for the world's largest transformational organization. That was the silver lining that I had to deal with myself. Excuse me. And after that, when I was sane, took all of that, and I took a look at now that I'm not in extreme pain all the time, what am I interested in? What's fun? What lights me up? What's juicy? What's good? And I did a free write. I was in Santa Cruz and everything's sort of new agey over there. So I do a free write, and I take out a pad of paper and I'm, okay, what am I interested in? And I'm, my hand is just starting to move and it's making a W and it's making an O and it's making an M.
It's like a Ouija board.
It's like a Ouija board. It's like, woman, whoa, that's what I'm interested in. It was like the lights went on for me, right? And that's where I turned my focus from not just kind of growth and development, but really to relationship growth and development. That was 1995, and it's been a ride of a lifetime ever since. It's all I've ever done for work. And Alicia came in shortly after that and took everything over. Now she owns everything, right?
Yes, I do.
So it's awesome. It's been a great life, and even a couple of decades in, it's getting better.
Yes, it is. It is. And my background includes, as Erwan mentioned, a a pretty great upbringing. You know, my parents are awesome. It was a stable situation. They still live in the same house that my brother and I grew up in. It was good. I mean, of course, it had its challenges like anything, but I had that kind of upbringing. And however, when I went off to college and was kind of pushed out of the nest and out of my bubble, I kind of freaked out. So that was when I started my personal growth journey. Around age 19, did a lot of therapy trying to get my bearings as a young adult out on my own. And I discovered that I loved it. I loved therapy. I loved psychology so much so that I majored in it in college. And then I went to graduate school to learn to become a therapist myself. And I was kind of on that path, almost finished getting the master's. And I was finding myself really interested in not just psychology, but like relationships and sexuality and how that all works. And I remember being holed up in the library at the university I was at, trying to like read everything I could about it. And everything in the library was sort of like outdated, and I was hungry for something. A friend of mine, one of my best friends named Shayna, she's also a mom of a 9-year-old little boy. She said, "You got to meet this guy, Erwan, that I just met. He has this organization and teaches these classes on relationships and like spirituality. I'm like, just take me to this guy. He sounds awesome." So we walk into this class, this event he's leading at his apartment in the inner sunset of San Francisco. And I still remember the first time I saw him. I was like in another relationship at the time that was kind of on its way out. And then there he was, and he looked all cute, like scruffy, how you are now. The judo pants and the Uggs and the cute, I don't know, totally my type, right? So I was really interested. Fast forward a bunch of months and a bunch of stuff. We're dating. I end up visiting a course that he's teaching, the pleasure course, and I just couldn't get over how much I learned about myself. It was deep, it was fun, it was sexy, it was romantic, and I decided after I finished my master's to join his organization. So, as he said, I basically took it over. Here we are together, and now we're here with you and for you, and not only about how to be a great parent, but how to have a great relationship while you're being a parent, which we all know doesn't come super easy.
Right, it's a huge job. You know, it's a really, really big job. And normally we don't do top 10 tips, you know, because like I'm intellectual from New York and very profound, and Alicia is just awesome. But we're going to do top 10 tips tonight. It sounded fun, so we're going to do that. So if you have a pen and paper, you might want to write these down. Each one has proved priceless for us, kind of like a roadmap, okay? I want to go on a total tangent and just say, you know, since Rich is here, Rich was there back in the beginning, in the very beginning of this.
Yes.
You know, and he kind of stole my then girlfriend who I started teaching. We didn't exactly, because she came back, you know, whatever. It's a long story like that. But like, you know, Rich, you know,
we know about you.
Yeah, we know about you.
And Rich has a darling little girl who's, I think, 4 or just about 4. I think she's already 4, and we love her, and we see you guys all the time. We love you.
She's got to be over 4.
She's 4.
She's as big as Aiden.
I know,
right?
yeah.
She's like an athlete.
I know, she is. Right. Very strong.
All right, so anyway, that's a tangent. So parenting is a huge job, no question about it. So, you know, we have a great relationship, but it's not because like everything is easy or anything like that. It's really because we have space for all of it. And there's all kinds of roller coasters in a relationship, and we're going to tell you how we use those rides, that roller coaster, the ups and the downs, to take things to new places. And not just be awesome parents, but have a really turned on relationship. And not just have a turned on relationship, but actually be awesome parents. You know, I think of rock stars, right? And their life is so awesome, but then their kids get neglected, right? Or for most people, it's more like, you know, they're really attending to their kids. And as Alicia said, the relationship gets neglected. So tonight's about how to have both of them rock. So the first thing is acknowledge, number one, is acknowledge what is happening, whatever's happening in your relationship life. You're in a relationship, or you're single, it's going well, or there's a breakdown, there's a challenge. Whatever is going on, acknowledge it. Tell the truth about it. There's nothing that people lie about more than their relationship life and their sex life, really. It really is the thing that people don't tell the truth about the most. If you tell the truth about it, you're half the way home. So that's why we put it as number one. Acknowledge whatever is happening for you, especially if there is some kind of breakdown in your relationship. Maybe the communication is lacking a little bit, or maybe the sex is lacking a little bit, or maybe you don't have as much time as you'd like to have fun with each other, whatever it happens to be. But acknowledge what's going on, especially if there is a challenge or a breakdown. For example, 15 years into our relationship, we had Aiden, right? And it was like light coming into our life. It was awesome. And our sex life started to decline. And we're romance teachers and sex teachers, right? We teach all that stuff, right? So, we didn't expect that to happen, but it did. And it happens for a lot of people. And what really worked for us was acknowledging. We had conversation. Wow, isn't that interesting? Like kind of our sex life. Wow, okay, we're kind of tired and we're getting up at night and like we don't have as much time. And we acknowledged the breakdown. And that allowed us to carve out time for our romance, for our sex life. And we'll get more into how we did that and carving out time and all the rest of that. But tip number one is acknowledge whatever's going on for you, especially if there is a breakdown. So just take a minute, breathe that in, feel that. Don't have this be about us, have this be about you. See, feel your relationship life, however that's going. Number two is to attend to the relationship, right? Now that sounds obvious, but it's really lacking for most people in relationship, and even more for parents. The relationship, I love that you said that early on, the relationship tends to fall through the cracks. It tends to sort of, not get attended to. So this is probably our top key point. Would you say this is our top key point, to attend to the relationship?
Yes, and it's the top key point not only for having a great relationship, but for being an awesome parent. Sometimes we can think, the more attention I put on my child, the better parent I am. Great to pay attention to your child, but when it's to the detriment of the relationship, it actually sets a lesser example for the child, and it can go against some of our, guilty conscience thing.
And it's actually good for kids to see the adults having a great relationship. And if it's a mother and a father having a great romantic relationship, right? To actually see that, right? Aiden has to put up with the fact that we have a great romantic relationship,
Yes.
And, it's funny. I'll show you another. I just can't help but sort of sharing these.
Let me share
little.
this.
Yeah, you share.
Oh my gosh, watch this.
Little videos. I think it's actually rubbing off on it.
I know it is. It is.
Oh, I love that. You guys are so cute. Yay! Yay! Oh my God, you guys are the best. You guys are perfect. You guys are little Buddhas. Yay!
Our attention to relationship is rubbing off on Aiden.
It really is. I was amazed taking that video that wow, this kid's kind of got it going on.
Yeah.
It's really good. See, sometimes adults sacrifice the romance between each other to be good parents, but it's really important for the child to see that, the primary relationship is not the parent-child relationship, it's the relationship with each other. That's really healthy for the child to see that. Okay, and it's unfortunately rare. The third tip is go out and have fun. Go to new places with each other, with your child, with your children. Do fun stuff. You know, go out. Don't sacrifice that.
Woo! We love Cuba.
Great food.
This is mine.
Now, I'll tell you a secret. I'll just pause this video and tell you a secret. We're not in Cuba. We're in, what's that neighborhood?
We're in Potrero Hill at a Cuban restaurant.
At a Cuban restaurant. But like, you know. And
We're
then,
traveling.
Right? And then here's us.
Oh, gosh.
Oh, this is one of the times we went out and it didn't work. Let's see, I don't know if we can backtrack to that, but, you know, we went to the Van Gogh exhibit, which is kind of moving around the United States right now, and we brought Aiden, and we were all excited, and it was so loud and, like, a little spooky, like you could hear the music. Like, we left in 5 minutes only because he was kind of traumatized. We tried earplugs, you know, it didn't work. And then, I don't know what this one is. Let's share this picture.
Okay, let's share it, yes.
So this is us. We're out at the beach. We're having fun. Oh, we're having our private beach party. So you get the idea.
Right.
Right? Go out, have fun, make it a priority. You know, in the first few tips, we're dealing with the basics. You know, it's kind of obvious, but it's really easy to not do that stuff. Oh, you know, work is more important, or this is more important, or that's more important. No, you really want to prioritize the relationship and fun and going out and carve some time out for it. You know, sometimes people are like, oh, you know, I don't have time for that, or I don't, you know, have the resources for that. Like, divorce is expensive. You know, not having fun takes a toll on your health and your relationship. It's very costly in many dimensions of life to not attend to the basics. Okay, so those are the first 3 tips. The next tip is how to deal with worry. And I wanted to include this because as parents, don't we worry a lot? Right? Don't we worry about our child or our children, right? And yeah, of course, there's a good side to that, but it can kind of get extreme. And I remember being a teenager. I mentioned that I used to have obsessive compulsive disorder, OCD, anxiety, fear, worry, that kind of thing where you're, you know, always checking either to make sure the doors are locked or the windows are locked or you know, some people have kind of a hand washing thing or, you know, whatever it is. It's like fear gone awry, right? Even people who don't have OCD, you know, human beings are just kind of over worried, right? So, but I had it extreme. So when I was studying psychology at the University of California, Santa Cruz, I studied obsessive compulsive disorder because I had it. And I found the world's expert. He was in Manhattan where I grew up, so I flew over. He was the expert. He was a cognitive behavioral therapist. His name was Stephen Phillipson. I flew to New York, and I'd been dealing with OCD for 5 years. I was in psychoanalysis for it as a teenager. I'm like anxious all the time and checking and worrying and doing all kinds of weird stuff. And the way he taught me to deal with it was the opposite of what I expected. What he had me do was feel my fears and face my fears, and twice a day, he had, believe it or not, he had me sit and try to make myself anxious and worried about the things that I was worried about. So instead of running away from the fear, he had me just feel it and confront it. It's a process called deconditioning, right? So he deconditioned me to the fear, and you know, I was able to just feel the fear and tolerate it, and it was unpleasant, and it started to leave, right? So the bottom line on that is the worst way to deal with fear is run away from it The best way to deal with fear is feel it in your body. Don't get into behaviors and thoughts that are trying to make it better, worrying, being neurotic. Don't do that. Actually just feel it, experience it, and let it leave the head center and experience it in your body, right? So right now, if you got any worry about a work thing or a life thing or a kid thing or anything like that, just use this as an opportunity to let your attention drop into your body, feel your body, take a breath, even if it's uncomfortable, just tolerate it. Like the Buddhists say, everything is impermanent, it goes away. That's the way to deal with fear. And parents tend to have a lot of worry, human beings tend to have a lot of worry, so we just kind of wanted to put that in there. Anything else we want to say about anxiety or worry or fear or anything like that?
Well, we all have it, as Erwan's saying, and sometimes it can lead us to act kind of like crazy people with our kids. Now, look, we sometimes worry about messing our kids up, right? Like, oh gosh, if I do this or I don't do this, it's going to mess them up. We're going to mess them up. We just do. We're human and we make lots of mistakes. So repair is the key. So like one option is doing something you're not feeling great about and worried you're going to mess them up, and you keep being worried, and then that affects your actions towards them. Instead, you can repair.
And that's what really worked for me, because my childhood was very difficult, but it really did have a silver lining, and it got me to deal with myself as a human being. I wouldn't trade in my difficult childhood for anything in the world, really. So you don't need to worry about all that stuff. We all mess up our kids. It's inevitable. But as Alicia said, if you repair it and you're present and you're conscious and you help the healing process, because, the breakdowns are inevitable. If you help the healing process, it's actually character building. Difficulty, damage even, can become an asset if it is dealt with. Okay? So tip number 4 is really deal with worry, how to deal with worry, confront it, feel it in your body, and also don't worry about it because you can repair it.
Yeah.
And it actually is beneficial to repair it.
Yes, and you get to be more relaxed. So the tip number 5, I'm going to take this one. So, okay, I'm going to explain this one. Locate your real issues. Know that you're never really fighting about what you think you're fighting about. Know that you're never really fighting about what you think you're fighting about. Let that one sink in. Okay. I'm going to give you an example of a couple that I've been working with for almost a year now. And there was this issue that came up. They got in this big fight. They came to the session, they got in this big fight. And the fight was about that she got done with work. She walked out into the living room and found, her husband was sitting on the couch. He was not doing what he was supposed to be doing, which was out walking the dog. The dog was going crazy. He hadn't taken the dog out for a walk yet. She got mad, he got mad, big fight, right? So it seems like, they're fighting about that he didn't walk the dog and she's upset. Actually, when we looked a little deeper and she kind of looked at what did that trigger in me? How do I feel about that? And we kind of went and explored down that rabbit hole. It turned out that she had been feeling like he doesn't care. He doesn't care. He's sort of indifferent to her and what matters to her. That's pretty deep and an intense way to feel. And then as she felt into it more and I was asking her questions, it was very reminiscent of how she felt in her family where she grew up and kind of walked around feeling that way. So it's a simple example, and it's a pretty big thing to be responsible for. But what you can see is that the fight and her upset wasn't about that. Maybe she was irked, fine, that he didn't take the dog out. But the big emotional reaction was about something even deeper. If you know these things about yourself, then it makes it much easier on the relationship.
It really takes a lot of pressure off of the relationship. In my relationship with Alicia, a lot of things get triggered that don't really have to do with her or the relationship. They're from my past. And if I didn't know that, then it would all be a burden on the relationship and on Alicia. So knowing that your issues are usually not based in the relationship, they're just triggered in the relationship, takes the weight off of the relationship and allows you to really deal with the fundamental issues. We were reluctant to include this one because we could do a whole session on that topic alone, but it's a really good takeaway. When you're upset, see what the issue is underneath versus projecting it onto your partner. Now, related to this is our sixth tip. The sixth tip is handle your inner critic, right? In psychological parlance, it's your superego. We could call it the judge, right? Everybody's got this part of themselves that's kind of judging, right? The inner critic, the superego, judging ourselves and judging others. And the only person who gets more judged than ourselves by our inner critic is our partner.
The person closest to us.
Right? So we've got a whole series on how to handle the inner critic. And if you end up working with us and, like that, we always recommend that our students start with this because you need to get the inner critic off of your back to have any kind of movement forward in an awesome relationship or being an awesome parent. The superego, the inner critic, is a huge block to forward movement. So we always start people with that. The takeaway is get your inner critic off your back. Don't play the blame game. When you find yourself doing that, especially with your partner, just stop.
Before we go on to number 7, I want to remind you guys, jot down any questions you have. You can chat them in, or you can chat them in or ask them later during our Q&A time. So all questions are welcome.
The 7th tip is carve out time for your relationship. It will take away time from other things. It might take some time away from Netflix. It might take some time away from work. It might even take some time away from parenting. But carve out some time for your relationship so that your relationship really has the time and space to flourish. Never have human beings been as busy as they are nowadays.
Now, once couples carve out time, sometimes they're like, well, what do we do during this time? You might have a desire to have more physical intimacy or connection or just to talk and share more intimately. So we have 4 practices that we train our students in. We're showing you this image here. This is the members section of our website that those people who work with us have access to. And we've got these videos. The 4 practices are meditation, psychological inquiry, body practice, and sensual practice. And we found that this gives couples some really nice things to do together during that time that you carve out. Of course, there's also date night and going out for dinner and all that kind of stuff too, which we recommend. But the practices help connect you to yourself, connect you to each other, and also pave the way for more physical intimacy, which sometimes can be a little challenging to just jump into, especially if that hasn't been happening a lot for a while.
I want to show folks an actual picture of the practices.
Yep, you got it.
So, meditation, Psychological inquiry is in the lower left. Meditation's in the upper right. Touching practices are in the upper left. Body practice, we kind of did a pandemic online version of body practice, is in the lower right. But in terms of the relationship, it's especially these two on the left. Actually carve out and dedicate some time for your relationship. And we're not pie in the sky about it. It really will take some time away from other things. We recommend taking some time away from other things and really prioritizing the relationship. Those touching practices are priceless. And sex is something that tends to fall away for people who are parents. The touching practices don't have to be sexual. They can just be emotional, physical, like that. But they provide a stepping stone to sensual contact, which provides a stepping stone to sexual contact. Okay? So the touching practice is having some time each day to even do something as simple as what we call conscious holding, or something as simple as deep touch, hand on heart, hand on abdomen. It provides a stepping stone to sensual contact, which provides a stepping stone to sexual contact. You don't want to push sexual contact, but you do want to kind of make it easy. You want to have some time where you're with each other and physical, and some practices that have you engaging with each other physically that can lead to sexual contact if it turns out that you're wanting to do that.
Sometimes people feel, and you may have felt like this, like, well, sex or sensual contact, intimacy is supposed to be spontaneous, right? And what we're suggesting is not spontaneous, it's actually scheduled. If you look in our calendar at 9:15 a.m. every morning, it's our pleasure time, we call it, and we engage in these practices with each other. Now, I think that spontaneous is great. It's also a little overrated if you consider that when you leave it up to spontaneity, it may not happen very often. So why not have scheduled and have it happen more often?
And sometimes people ask, yeah, but I don't want to schedule sex. We're not recommending you schedule sex. We're recommending you have some time scheduled to be with each other physically. And it might just be deep touch, right? It might just be hand on heart or conscious holding or something like that. But when you have the time and you're already touching each other, sometimes it does lead into sexual contact. That's a whole other area of expertise for us. We go all the way to extended orgasm and a state of orgasm and all kinds of stuff. Not tonight's topic. We're not going to get into that. Don't worry about it. But there's a very pleasurable pathway from that basic touching. Okay, so tip number 7 is carve out space and time for each other. Okay, tip number 8, actually we already covered tip number 8, which is get physical, the touching practices. That's a good combo, carving out time for each other and having some actual touching in there, so it's not just mental contact, right? It's actual contact, right? Okay, physical contact tends to lead to other stuff. All right, number 9. Boy, we jammed so much into this. Each one of these, it's like I want to expound on each one of these for an hour and put you guys into exercises and all that. That's how we normally teach. We normally would do 2 hours. We have a class called Mastery of Relationship. It's every Wednesday. We would take 2 hours for any one of these items, right? We're kind of blasting through it so you get it all in a short period of time because we want you to have it. Number 9 is get complete with your parents, right? Get complete with your parents. Being complete with your parents is really important. If you're not complete with your parents, if you're, we're not saying you have to like your parents. We're not saying you have to condone their parenting style. We're not saying any of that. We're saying be complete with them. Really accept the way that it was with your parents and the way that it is with your parents. Accept it. Be complete with it. For me, it was very difficult, but I accept it. And although my mother is not alive, my father is alive, and I love my father. I have a really good relationship with him. And I limit the contact with him because he's a kind of intense guy, right? When I was a, child, he was out in the streets of Manhattan literally fighting. Usually with would make a great Netflix movie. He was out fighting, usually with groups of people. Believe it or not, it's very dramatic. It's a good movie, that kind of stuff. But it was difficult and painful. The point is, I got complete with how he is and how he isn't. And it just allowed me to love him. And then I don't carry that into my relationship with Alicia. And even more difficult in my relationship with my father was my relationship with my mother. And I got complete with how she was and how she wasn't. And I had to do it after she died, which was that much more difficult. That might be the case for some of you. A very difficult relationship with one or both of your parents. You really do need to get that complete to be an awesome parent. I wish it wasn't the case, but it really is the case. And we could expound on that a lot. And if you end up working with us or talking to us later, we'll support you in that. It's very important. The last tip is inquire, investigate, study, right? Inquire into your relationship with your partner. Alicia and I spend time. That's the lower left-hand corner there. We spend time every week. We have dedicated time 3 times per week. We sit down in those actual chairs. That's our actual room. We're actually doing it there. We inquire into our relationship, what's going on. And it's not reporting, it's not checking in, it's not reporting. It's like, how are you feeling? What's going on? There's some time to look into our experience about being in a relationship with each other, right? It's one of those 4 practices, psychological inquiry. We do that relative to our relationship. It's very important, and it makes it so that your psychology doesn't unconsciously take over your relationship unbeknownst to you. Okay? So we jam-packed a lot into these 10 points. Some of them are probably too big for a 1-hour class, but we wanted to touch in on them. Hopefully you wrote them down. I'm going to bottom line them in 30 seconds right now. What I'd like you to do is write down your questions. You probably have some questions about these practices or what we do or how it goes for us or like that, or maybe something to share about your life in relation to what we're talking about, being an awesome parent and having an awesome relationship. So write down questions that you have. We'll have a few minutes for questions, and then we're going to wrap the evening up and give you something that really I think you'll really enjoy, kind of a gift from us to you. First tip is acknowledge what's happening, especially the breakdowns. Tip number 2, attend to your relationship. Tip number 3, go out. Tip number 4, deal with worry, fear, and anxiety. Tip number 5, locate your real issues versus slathering them on your partner. Tip number 6, handle your inner critic. Shut your inner critic down. Tip number 7, carve out space and time for your relationship. Tip number 8, get physical. Do the touching practices. Tip number 9, be complete with your parents, or get complete with your parents. And tip number 10, always be inquiring and feeling into and investigating what's going on in your relationship life.
So we've got a couple of questions messaged into us. We're going to read them out loud and then answer them. And then those of you who have questions, feel free to pop them in the chat and we'll get to as many as we can. Okay, the first one is, I have a question. We find it hard to find time to connect with each other with a son that wakes up early. I can relate to that. And a teen daughter that's up until late. Any ideas? Okay, so here's my idea, and then you can add anything you have. So I bet that if you made it really clear to your older daughter that it was like parent alone time for a little while, and you actually let yourselves go into your bedroom, close the door, it's not like you're going to be super loud or anything, but you're going to have some private time. It sets a really good example. We've coached parents that have kind of older kids to just have their kids engaged in something and go take the time you need.
It's really okay, especially a teenager. Teenagers are pretty smart. It's really okay to say, hey, this is our alone time. It's really important for us to connect. If there's something you need, please ask us beforehand. Of course, if there's an emergency, you can come and knock, but this is our time for us. Not only can a teenager understand them, but it'll train them to attend to their primary relationship. And it's really okay to do that. Your inner critic might have something to say about that or all the rest of that kind of stuff, but it is really okay to do that. Something will be sacrificed. I don't know what your job situation is, but you could do it at night or you could take an hour out of your jobs, but you do want to do that. You can't have a great relationship unless you allocate some time for the relationship.
The next question is, how do you manage to dedicate the same amount of energy into your business after having a child? Efficiency. It's all about efficiency. Most of you know this or have probably experienced this. When you have a child, what's really important comes to the forefront. So we have, in terms of our school and our organization, made things very lean, very simple, created systems, and that's what we do. Anything else that you want to say?
Yeah.
We work at night more. There's chunks where we're just devoted to Aiden, and we don't work during that time.
So, we're coaches, right? One of the things that our coach told us is accomplish more in less time. And we actually, as Alicia said, got efficient and did that. But the other thing is I want to be ultra realistic about this. We also took time and attention away from our work. Right? We're not these people who are trying to get it all done. You can't get it all done in 2021. You can't. It's impossible. In 1975, you could finish all the things on your to-do list. In 2021, you can't. There's just too many to-dos, too much information. We deliberately took and take some time away from our work lives because our relationship with Aiden and our relationship with each other is more important. So I think this is, I think we should probably start to wind it down.
Transition?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Good. Well, we're going to transition now. So in the beginning, I shared that for those of you that are new, which is most of you, there's something that we're going to offer you. For those of you that are interested in learning more about working with us. So right now, I've put in the chat our phone number and also a link, and I'm going to tell you why. So we recommend, for those of you who are like, ooh, this is really interesting. I might be interested in getting more support in my relationship and bringing our relationship to a whole other level or getting some support with parenting or both. So for those of you who are interested, I offer you a Love Life consultation. This is a free consultation. It's with me. It's over Zoom. It'll be about 45 minutes. And we'll get personal. You can ask me anything you want to ask me. You can share with me what's going on with you, challenges, goals that you have, questions. And then if it looks like Erwan and I can support you in what you're going through and what you want, I'll lay out all of the different ways that we work with people. So we've got group coaching classes, like Erwan mentioned, on Wednesday evenings. Everything's online, by the way. We have individual coaching, weekend intensives. We have sensual training programs and some work trade opportunities. We have an affiliate program. And we also, like, you might be someone that wants to bring this information to a group, maybe your company or a club or some kind of group that you belong to. I mean, we've done talks at Google, we've done talks at sex shops and for book clubs and all sorts of things. So there's lots of ways. So if any of those appeal to you, if you're like, I'm interested, I recommend you set up the Love Life consultation. So we're going to tell you how to do that. Then I'm going to say a few more things. You can text this number. This is our organization's number. Just give me your name, tell me you're interested in the free consultation. I'll text you back to set it up when we're done tonight. You can click the link that's in the chat. That'll take you to a page where you can fill out the form and request the consultation. I want to say a few more things about this, you guys. First thing is, I know, like I said in the beginning, this is a sensitive area. It's a sensitive topic, and we really care a lot about it, right? Our relationships, our parenting, our sexuality. These consultations are confidential. It's a safe space for you to bring up anything that's of concern to you. Maybe there's challenges you haven't really talked to anybody about. Maybe there's goals that you haven't really shared that are really juicy. And you also might be wondering, like, should I invest time in my relationship life? Like, is this something that I really want to do? Is this worth investing in? I would say so. I would definitely say so, because the benefit of having a relationship that really thrives and gives you energy is worth it. The heartache and the wasted time from the constant fights or the difficulties or the misunderstandings, well, let's just say they're time-consuming and expensive. So I recommend going for it. And you may want to up your game with your partner, like maybe things are pretty good and you want to take it to another level. Maybe there's some like sticky communication issues that you want to work out, and maybe you want to have more juice and passion, or just learn more skills, learn more stuff. Okay, so here's how you do that again. We're going to put this image on the screen. Text this number. You can do that now, or you can click the link and fill out the form. Don't wait. Just do it now. If you've got that inkling that you're interested, just do it now. We'll have a fabulous conversation, and I look forward to it.
I'll tell you about when I had to really address something new that was difficult and challenging. My parents, their intimacy was terrible. And then here I was in a relationship with Alicia. We were dating, and the intimacy was great. And Alicia wanted to be in a committed relationship. And all of a sudden I started to sweat. It was new. It was different. It was challenging. Part of me was just like, no. But I had a good idea. I was kind of smart, if you'll forgive me for saying so. So I asked my best friend, Julie. I said, Julie, Alicia wants to get into a committed relationship. Should I do it? And Julie said, yeah, why not? Try it. If you don't like it, just get out, but go. So I said, you're right. And then I didn't do anything, and months passed. And then one day I was in my house. I lived on Pierce Street off of Haight Street in San Francisco at the time. My best friend Adam lived with me. I was also his coach, and I coached him in, I can't remember what the specific thing was, but something in his life, and he had this big awakening about, a very Zen awakening about being awake and being alive and confronting life. And what he did, believe it or not, is he went into the basement, he got this red paint, and he wrote, "Wake up," in bright red paint on his wall. It was dripping. It was kind of gory. It was kind of intense. It was like, like that. And then he turned to me and he said, Erwan, how about you? What's up for you? And I said, well, I'm going to get into a committed relationship with Alicia, which I'd been saying for months. So he said the best thing he possibly could have said to me. He said, when? Now, I lived in a Zen monastery, I knew all, I knew Zen. So I gave him the Zen answer. I said, now. And he said, okay, I'll drive you. The sweat really started to pour out at that point. He took me down into the garage. We got into his big black Jeep Cherokee. We drove half a mile to Dolores Street where Alicia lived. There's never any parking on Dolores Street. There's a spot right in front of her house. We pull in. He leans over me. He pushes the door open. He pushes me out. Alicia and her housemate Carrie are walking down the street. Everything is coming together. I'm sweating buckets. I pull Alicia over to the steps. Adam grabs Carrie, takes her off, and I say, yes, let's get into a committed relationship. I'm finally realizing, all right, let's go. I'm tired of this challenge with intimacy. Alicia, who's been pitching for a committed relationship, says, I don't know. She gave me a little taste of my own medicine. Anyway, long story short, the next day she says, yes, we get into a committed relationship. Best thing I ever did was get over myself, over my issues, and really go for it. So if there's something in your relationship life that you'd really like support in, a challenge, or things are great and you really want to take it to that next juicy level, set up a Love Life consultation with Alicia. We love supporting people. We love supporting you. Tonight has been an absolute blast. The phone number is in the chat. We don't know you, but we love you.
Thanks again to Kirsten and the Burlingame Parents Club. We love you. Talk to many of you soon.